I read so much in March you wouldn't even believe it if I told you. But I'm gonna tell you, so I would appreciate it if you believe what I say. Welcome back, friends and other folks. If you're new, hello, my name is Entro. Here are the archives. We talk about books, reading, audiobooks, ebooks, everything book related. Sorry, I fidget, and so you might have to get used to this in a lot of videos. If I have something in my hands, I'm just gonna be fidgeting. That's just what I do. But anyways, we are here to talk about everything that I read in March, a March reading update. And I generally in the past, I've just limited these reading updates to just novels that I read, but I realize I do read every single day. It's just I don't read a novel, a physical book every single day. So I wanted to start sharing everything that I read, not just the books, because there's so many different kinds of reading material out there, right? Manga, manhwa, regular novels, articles, just a lot of things like that. So there's a lot of reading material out there, and I don't want to limit us and what we can read. I don't want to limit you and what I can suggest to you to read. So here's everything that I read in March. We're just gonna get right into it. The first thing is Magician Apprentice. So Magician Apprentice is a book that was recommended to me by TikTok. There was a fun little thing I tried of just like spinning a genre wheel and having people recommend me books that fell into that genre that wheel said. Now, disclaimer, I did that both on TikTok and on YouTube, trying to see if different platforms, like the different audiences, would give me something different. Nobody on YouTube replied. That short didn't do well, and like 2 people replied on TikTok. So that video didn't really go as planned, but it was still fun because I got a couple of suggestions out of it. And honestly, it was a fun video to make. I want to make them more going forward. I don't want to throw away the idea. Maybe it's just how to do it at a different time. But regardless, I landed on Medieval Fantasy, and this creator that I met on TikTok, her name is Jazz. Go follow her, she's super dope. Jazz recommended Magician Apprentice to me. So I looked it up, Medieval Fantasy, and I started it. Now, what you should know about Magician Apprentice. The first things first is this was made in 1982, I think. I don't have the book anymore. I had to return it to my public library. But I think it was made in the 1980s, 1990s is when it was published, right? The book, if you're I'm about to get aggressive. If you've seen my Ranger's Apprentice videos, you know I reread them shits every single 3 to 5 years. Every single season of my life, I reread Ranger's Apprentice because I just have to. Now, sorry, I'm gulping a lot. Now, tell me why Magician Apprentice started out the exact same way as Ranger's Apprentice did. The exact same beginning trope. The exact same orphan protag in a castle is out doing his own shenanigans, comes back, and he encounters the local advisor to the duke or the king or the baron of their castle. Ranger's Apprentice, it was Halt the Ranger. In Magician Apprentice, it is Colgan, the Duke's magician. So it just started off the exact same way. And then they had a choosing coming up where Pug, the protagonist, wanted to be apprentice under the Swordmaster. You know who else wanted to be apprentice underneath the Swordmaster? Will, no name, because he didn't have a last name at that point. Will the orphan also wanted to. You know what didn't happen to both of them? The Swordmaster didn't pick them, it picked their friends, Tomas and... Fuck, I'm blanking on his name. Damn it. What's his name? No! I promise I'm a fan of this series. I promise. I'm just blanking on his name. I don't know why. 1 second. Horace. Yes. This is why you gotta have books on hand. This is why you buy books, is to remember these kind of things. Horace and Tomas get picked up by the Swordmaster. So then where does that leave our orphan protag? To be picked up by the advisor he stumbled into It's literally the same. I don't know what happened. I want to talk to... I'm so sorry I'm blanking on these names. I want to talk to John Flanagan just to see, bro, did you read this book? and then make this short story based on this book, because there's no way they both start out the exact same fucking way. Now, the stories are wildly different, like wildly different, but it's just so funny that they both start off the same way. I don't think that's spoilers, because that all happens in chapter 1. So if you think that's a spoiler, I'm so sorry, but that happens in chapter 1. So you're not missing out on anything. Now, back to Magician Apprentice. So Magician Apprentice takes place in a world where you have dwarves, you have elves, you have dragons, trolls, gremlins, humans. So you have basically your Lord of the Rings, D&D, RPG, like creatures and characters, right? Which is really cool because it's like a Lord of the Rings meets Ranger's Apprentice novel, right? So, what happens? Well, I'm not gonna tell you, but what I am gonna tell you is that personally, I thought it was okay. I thought it was average. I have 3 videos talking about what I thought about that series on this channel. They're 3 shorts, so I would recommend you go watch those. If you really want to know everything, I will leave you with a couple of things that I'm going to reiterate in this one, just in case you never watch those. And you know what? It's okay. I appreciate you regardless. About A Magician's Apprentice, I'm going to talk about a couple of pros, right? The first thing was the pacing was fucking F1 Formula Racing, alright? He literally skipped all the mundane, mediocre, menial stuff and just got to the plot, which I loved. I appreciate Raymond D. Feist for that. He just kept taking us through the plot. It wasn't like we were spending a day in the life of kind of shit. No, we had plot after plot after plot after plot after plot. Loved that. Loved the pacing up until the last third of the book when it went from Formula 1 speed plot to fighter jet Mach 15 speed plot. I don't know why we skipped forward so much time, but it just felt really weird. It did feel really, really weird towards the end of it. And that, it's like the pacing ruined itself for me because of that. It was really good up until the last third, and then it just kept going so fast, and I was like, what is all this time we're skipping? What is going on? Now, the next thing is the point of views. You know me, I didn't even tell you guys, this book has a fucking map in it. I can't even show you right now, but this book has a world map in it. Thank you, Raymond D. Feist. Even in the 1980s, they were doing world maps. My guy. Okay, back to the POVs, right? So the point of view for this series was third person limited. I think you would call it third person limited. Correct me if I'm wrong if you've ever read this, but I believe you would call it third person limited, right? So what I liked about it was generally we followed Pug, but then every now and then we would have chapters that followed Tomas. And another thing about this book that annoyed me was there were POV changes within chapters. Chapters were long as fuck. You would have like 25 page chapters where you would just have that like 1-line gap between this paragraph and this paragraph to signal like a new scene or a new area or a new part of the timeline. There were POV changes with it. I'm gonna get to that in a sec. So anyways, the POV was actually really good, and I appreciated that it wasn't just Pug, it was other characters as well. Now, we didn't get all the other characters, but we got a good amount of other characters, which is good. Now, going to what I didn't like about the POV were the really annoying POV changes within the chapter. That's what really frustrated me, was that no prompting, no setup. It was just, 5 pages, this paragraph ends, single line, this paragraph, or single line blank, this paragraph starts, new POV of a different character. And I'm like, where the fuck are we going, Raymond Feist? What? It's not like, it's not a cool transition. It's just disorienting for the reader to read that. Coming from me, when I was engaged in the novel, it was very disorienting for me to see that. And that really, really upset me. Especially, once again, towards the... I don't know what happened in the last third of the novel, but the novel was like this at the beginning. It was going like this for me a little bit in the middle. Like this in the middle, and then boom, 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 boom. It just tanked. It really tanked in the last third because the fast pacing, the really annoying POV switches just ruined the last 4 or 5 chapters for me. I was like, what is going on? I was so frustrated. That being said, in this novel, in chapter 10, I read one of the best dragon scenes that I have ever read in a novel. Why is that? This was the last elder ancient dragon of like their species that these two characters were encountering. And the dragon was just recounting his life to them. And one thing led to another, and then it was time for the dragon to go. And the way Raymond E. Feist depicted the dragon's grace, elegance, authority, it was amazing. That was my favorite part of the entire novel, was just that. And that's the only reason why I think this book was mid, like a 3.5, was simply because of that. Everything else I would have given a 2, to be honest. Now, you know what's funny is that I went to the public library yesterday. And I picked up Magician Master, which is book 2 of this series. And you know what I also didn't know? That the Rift War saga is 4 books. It is Magician Apprentice, Magician Master, Silverthorn, and Darkness at Sethenon. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get to those. I really just wanted to read this just to see where the story is going, because it ended so annoyingly bad that I just want to see, like, does it redeem itself in this book? Like, does it actually redeem itself? So that's why I picked up, like, Magician Master, and I'm gonna try and read it. But back to Magician Apprentice, it was okay, right? Like, would I recommend it? I mean, if you're into Lord of the Rings x Ranger's Apprentice, yes, I would recommend Ranger's Apprentice over over that book, to be honest. It's just a better paced story. Did I like the characters? Yeah, they were cool. Some of the plot lines were cool. One thing I really did not like this at all, was the whole point is for Pug to be apprentice underneath a magician, and we got like no Pug magician time. Like, where is his character development that leads to his magical power development? Where is his improvement in his magical abilities? Where is any of that? It was just so much less about Pug as a protagonist and his journey as a magician, and it was really, really annoying. But that being said, there was a quote in the novel, which is one of my favorite quotes in the novel, where, because I like to write down like quotes in books that I really enjoy, just to go back and read them, because sometimes you just have a really fire-ass quote like this one, right? So this is from Colgan the Magician, and he says, "Magicians are considered young and inexperienced at 30, but in all other crafts, 30 would mark a man a journeyman or master, most likely readying his own son for the choosing." And that spoke volumes to me, because it really does describe us as a society right now, where we're like, oh my gosh, I need to, like, I don't have my life figured out yet, what am I gonna do? And I'm like in my 20s. Or I just turned 30 and I don't know what I'm doing. And it's really interesting because, you know, we try to compare ourselves to people who did make some sort of success at a young age. And I love that for them, but maybe that's just not for you. Maybe your success is a long, drawn-out process that you're supposed to enjoy and then look back on when you are successful and think, it was long, it was arduous, but it made me who I am, and I love who I am. You know? And so some people have a short timeline, some people have a long timeline. If you're trying to master a craft, like being a magician, not that we can do that in this world, that should take you 20, 30, 40 years sometimes to master it, right? You wouldn't become adept until 10 years. You wouldn't become any sort of, after adept, I would maybe call it a, what level would you put after adept, right? Because you would do apprentice, maybe in between apprentice, maybe adept at like 20 years, master at 35 years in the craft, and then something between apprentice and adept to be like, you kind of got it, but you're not like super skilled yet. Like you got the foundation down, but now you're trying to, like, you know, develop your abilities and things like that. Maybe, but that should take you 40 years or something like that, right? That shouldn't take you 5 years, and I get that. But we got like almost nothing from Pug, and it was so annoying. I've been talking for Magician Apprentice for so fucking long. We're gonna move on. Now, I started 2 manhwa, 2 webtoons, in March, and most of the webtoons I read are ongoing. They're not finished, and so I'll talk about it now, and then maybe I'll give an update when they're actually done, which I don't expect to be anytime soon. But maybe I'll give an update periodically about how I'm liking it. So the first manhwa or webtoon, I'll just call it a webtoon because it's on the webtoon website. The first webtoon that I read that I started was Get School. Now, if you know me, oh gosh, if you know me, you know I love webtoons, right? Not that I talk about them much on this website anywhere or on these videos, but I love webtoons. Why? Because they're just so fun to read. I love the colored graphics. Their art style is great. The stories are awesome. And I'm a sucker for dungeon tropes. So here we are. First one is called Get Schooled. Get Schooled is about the Korean education system, right? And if you didn't know this about the Korean culture, it is unfortunately very, very aggressively rampant in bullying, to the point where it makes children suicidal. And this is a real issue. It gets talked about a lot in both K-dramas, manhwa stories like this, because manhwas are Korean comics, and are generally focused on the Korea in general, culture, people, myths, etc. So bullying is aggressively rampant, and it's really bad. What happens in the story, this is how the story starts, is that say in year X, let's just say in year 1, the education governing body passed a law into place that says teachers and educational executives cannot discipline, basically they cannot hit physically, they cannot physically hit students. They cannot reprimand students like that. They can't do things like that. So what happens is that gives a lot of power to students to say and do what the fuck they want, because teachers can't fight back. So what students start doing is they just do their own shit. They'll bully their own teachers, they'll bully their classmates, they'll group up on people, they'll get teachers fired, they'll do all these really, really awful things because they have the power to do so. 3 or 4 years later, after that's so bad, the education governing body creates an agency called the Teachers' Rights Protection Agency, TRPA, I believe is what it's called. And the Teachers' Rights Protection Agency, basically what they do is they are invited to schools to oversee what's going on there and help teachers discipline the students so that, teachers aren't being abused, the education system isn't being abused, fellow students are not being abused, because they're to protect the teachers' rights to teach, the students' rights to learn, and everybody's rights to be in a nurturing, positive environment. Now, where this shit gets wild as fuck is because while teachers cannot hit their students, you know what the TRPA can? They can beat the fuck out of students. That is the best part. So you have this 30-year-old guy, right? You have, did I write down the names? I did not write down his name. You have the main guy. No, I did, Hwajin. So Hwajin is a 30-year-old ex-military man who's joined his father-in-law in the TRPA and acts as a warden, going to schools to request the TRPA's aid in bringing back equilibrium to the teaching environment. Along with Hwajin, Handrim also joins the TRPA as the first female warden and the second warden. Together they enact TRPA purpose, beating down shitty kids, parents, teachers, and anyone who else messes with the education of young ones. So it's so good. It's triggering. I promise you it's so triggering. So please be careful reading this webtoon. But it's basically, they'll go into a school, kids are being rowdy, they think that, oh, you can't do anything to me, because if you do anything to me, I'll just report you to the government. So they try and beat up teachers, beat up kids. So you have Hwajin who comes in, or Hwajin, and is it Hwajin? I think it's Hwajin, comes in and says, "Oh, you're gonna treat me like that. You're gonna do me like that. I'm gonna punch you in the face. I have a stick. I'm gonna hit you in the face with a stick. I have a foot. I'm gonna kick you in the face with this foot." Like, it's so funny and aggressive, And it's honestly a really, really good story. My light just died. One sec. Alright, well, my other light died, so you got dim-arish for, I guess, the rest of this video. And we're just gonna keep talking. So that's Get School. Great webtoon. I highly recommend it. It is very triggering, right? There's murder, there's suicide, there's rape, there's sexual harassment, there's just a lot of heavily triggering things in here, so please be careful when you read this novel. The second one is much more like less triggering, right? The second one is The Dungeon Cleaning Life of a Once Genius Hunter. If you know me, I keep saying that, but none of you know me. Because you don't know me, I love reading manga and manhwa, obviously, and one of my favorite tropes in manhwa is the dungeon trope, right? The dungeon trope coming from Solo Leveling, where you have these hunters who are in this world where dungeons appear through like a portal, and the hunters have to go into a dungeon, clear it out of monsters so that the monsters don't come through the portal and wipe out humanity, etc. Solo Leveling, fire. It's getting an anime. Recommend reading Solo Leveling, and then recommend watching the anime when it comes out. This one, Dungeon Cleaning Life of One Genius Hunter. It's really, really funny. It's basically comedic action manga or webtoon, and that's my favorite type of any sort of story is comedic action. Basically, you have the protagonist. I did not write anything down about this thing, so I apologize. I probably should have, but I didn't. So you have the protagonist. He is a genius hunter. He's an S-rank hunter. He is just coming back from a trip. He is very egotistical. He is very sure of himself, very self-confident, and he is on his way back from a job, and somehow he gets cornered by this group of thugs that end up being kind of like government's like army, the government squad. And then you have a masked guy who comes forward holding this genius S-tier hunter on his knees and says, "Any last words?" There's no context, by the way. There's just no context to what's happening. He's just surrounded and about to get shot. And so Genius Hunter's like, "Oh, I can get out of this easily." Other guy pulls up a beam at him, pulls up the scope at him that he can, the one weapon that can kill an S-tier hunter. Man pulls that out at him. So he pulls that out, and the next thing you know, bang, he's dead. Next thing you know, he wakes up, I think 15 or 20 years earlier, something like that. He gets up and he's like, "Oh, what happened? Like, where am I? What happened?" He still has his memories of his past like life as well, or his like future self. So he has his old memories intact, but he wakes up a 15-year younger version of him, and he does not have any invisibilities. He's basically weakened, but what he does have is the OCD ability, the OCD trait, which activates, and all he can think about is cleaning the fuck out of everything. So, for context, he, as an S-tier hunter, looked down on the dungeon cleaning team. The dungeon cleaning team is the team that goes in after the hunters are done, cleans up monsters, cleans up residue, cleans up all this stuff to make sure the dungeon is clean before it's shut down, because if monster shit is left in there, it corrupts the environment and worse things happen. So you have dungeon cleaning teams go in there after hunters are done, clean shit out, and then, that portal's gonna close. So he looked down the dungeon cleaning team, but now he is unfortunately sent back in time and ends up working for the dungeon cleaning team. So he has to now use his expertise as an S-tier hunter in order to help out the dungeon cleaning team, the dungeon cleaning department, and all the comedic shit that ensues with that. I would really highly recommend it. This one's actually really funny, really good. I was giggling it was so funny. I highly recommend it. The next thing that I read was Eragon in 4 days, because I had Eragon as part of my March thing because I just felt like reading it. I saw a couple of videos on TikTok for it, and I was like, you know what? I want to reread Eragon. So I read Eragon, right? I've already read it in the past. I've read all 4 books in the past. Amazing, amazing series. The Inheritance Cycle, amazing novels, right? Amazing novels. But Eragon, so I got the book from the public library as well. So on like March, whenever it was, like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I got the email saying, "Your book is due this Saturday." I was like, "Oh shit, why?" Somebody else had it on hold. How dare you have a book that's already checked out and put on hold and making me have to read it faster? I'm gonna find you who made me do this. And we're gonna have words. Mainly about books, because apparently you like to read and we could be friends. Moving on. So Eragon. I read it in 4 days. I basically just like sped read it every like evening and the morning. I love this series. I think Eragon is an amazing, to be honest, one of the modern classic fantasy novels that I think every reader should read, at least the first book of the series, which is Eragon. If you don't read Eldest, Brisingr, or Inheritance, read Eragon. Why do I say that? Because the story is really, really cool. The world, Alagacia, is a large world, and you actually have a frame of reference, even though like he does give you a world map. Christopher Paolini gives us a world map. Love him for that. By the way, the other two manhwa didn't have a world map. We're not going to talk about them. I'm gonna give them a pass because they're that good. The world of Alagacia is just so good, and the way Christopher Paolini talks about it, he kind of walks us through the world. You kind of know where you're going. You're going north. You're going east. You're going west. And it's probably east for you. This is west. Whatever. You know where you're going in the world, which is what I love. I love when authors can actually direct me to where I'm going in the world. The characters are cool. It's literally about dragon riders. How dope is that? I wish dragons were real. That's it. It just makes me love dragons and that world. The world that Christopher Paolini made, his language that he makes in that world is one of the reasons why I love the series so much, is because in a lot of novels, when authors try and create a new language, they try and get very like guttural with the words. They try and get very foreign with it, with very like different kind of obviously letter combinations and stuff. But those words don't really roll off the tongue like a language. They don't really make you think, this makes sense. This word makes sense. Christopher Paolini's language makes sense to an extent. It really does, which is why I love it so much. When you get later on into the series after Eragon, you see a lot more of those words come through, and they make sense. In the back, he gives you a glossary of what these words mean and how to say them. It's so, so good. And I'm actually really glad that I reread the novel, because Eragon, I forgot a lot of stuff that happened in Eragon. A lot of stuff that I thought happened in Eldest actually happens in Eragon, where he meets Murtagh, he meets Arya, he meets the elf girl and things like that. I just forgot a lot of the stuff that happened in Eragon. So I'm really glad I read the book. I do want to read more of the books, but whoever checked out Eragon probably also checked out Eldest in the book in the public library, so Eldest wasn't there. Now, if I want to be petty and spiteful, I can go put that shit on hold right now and make sure you have it back in 3 weeks for me. But I'm not gonna do that, because I'm not petty like that. Exactly. Fight me. I don't know why I'm being so aggressive. Sorry. My bad. Sorry about that, guys. So, last thing that I read was something that I just finished, or that I'm currently reading right now, that I read last year, but I want to talk about it, right? It's a manga called Windbreaker. It is really good, in my opinion. It is basically about delinquent school kids. The idea and the premise and the plot and the setting. I'm not going to tell you all those. I don't know why I just listed all those in a row. The setting is a town where you have different schools in the town, etc. Right? So you have Haruko Sakura, who joins a town wanting to go to the new school, Bofurin. So Bofurin is the school kind of like protector of the town. They're all delinquents, they all get into fights, they're all basically like, teenagers who like, being active, getting into fights, etc. But the idea, which is really cool behind the story, is that this Bofurin Academy is a school of delinquents, but this school specifically protects the town. This school is responsible for going on patrol in the town and making sure other delinquents aren't harming and messing with the town residents. This school is responsible for protecting itself and the town as the shield. And that's what I love about it. It's one of those group comes together kind of stories. And the characters themselves are really cool. I kind of want to draw them and make planners out of them again. I might add them to the list of tomorrow list designs that I make. But you have really cool character designs, cool character concepts, and you have the classic manga trope of, this is your academy, so every grade level has its own grade captain, and then you have so many different characters. So you have like the top 3 of class 1, you have the 4 kings of the academy, like the 4 the 4 strongest fighters, and you have like the captains, and then they have it's just all these like different manga tropes coming together in a really good way in this novel. The character designs are great, the banter, oh my god, I didn't even talk about banter in any of these books. We're backtracking real quick. The banter in Magician Apprentice, almost non-existent, which is another downside. There wasn't a lot of banter in the book. It was just a lot of like, it was a decent amount that I appreciated. It just wasn't enough for me to be like, oh my god, I love the banter in this book. Now when it comes to manhwa and webtoons, there's nothing but banter, and that's what I love. There is so much shit talking in these. It's so funny. Love the banter and Get Schooled and Dungeon Cleaning Laugh of Once Genius Hunter. And then now to Aragon. Not really banter. There's not really much banter going on. There's just talks between the characters, but there's not really much banter going on, which is what I thought it was okay, but I wish there would have been more banter. And then going to Windbreaker, so much banter. I love it. I love delinquent school novels. I love novels about like young adults and teens because there's just so much shit talking and banter that goes on. It's so funny. It's so funny. I love it. I would highly recommend reading Windbreaker, and it's Windbreaker with one word, and I'll put the first volume thing up on screen obviously so you'll see who the author is, because there is a manhwa called Windbreaker about cycling, and almost all the time you put Windbreaker into Google you'll find the manhwa, not the manga. So, if you want a link to it, let me know. I can send you a link to where I read it. It's really good. The reason why I brought this up is because I read it last summer when I was at my old apartment and I was just browsing and manga to read, and I came across it. I was like, you know what? Let's try it. Read it. It was great, but the site that I was reading it on only had about 32 of the chapters, and I could not find it anywhere. So then I saw on Twitter 2 days ago that it's being adapted into a manga. It's being adapted into an anime, and I was like, holy shit, let's fucking go! So excited. So I was like, okay, I guess it obviously had more chapters come out that past chapter 30, which is why it's getting adapted. I need to read it. I need to find it again. So I looked online, and I actually finally found a link in some like Reddit, deep in some Reddit posts. Like I was in Reddit. I don't go onto Reddit. Okay? I'm not a Reddit user. Unless I have things like this, then I'm deep in the Reddit threads trying to find these links. So I found the link to it, and I've been reading it. I read from chapter 30 to 72 last night. Which is why we're talking about it right now, because it's still March. I'm going to finish the rest of the chapters tonight, most likely. But that was Windbreaker. I highly recommend it if you're into manga. I do not think you'll be disappointed. And the translation is still pretty good. The artwork, great. The action scenes, great. The character differentiations, their own tropes, their own mannerisms, their own like individualities are great. I really enjoy this manga. It's on the same level as Awashi for me because it's a similar type of like high school, middle school kind of young teen, plot sequence, not like kind of setting plot premise kind of thing. So it's on the same level as that for me, which is why it hit me, because like I was reading Awashi a lot last year as well, which is why I found Windbreaker. So I would highly recommend it if you are into stories like that, delinquent school kids, delinquent like thing stories, whatever it is. It's better than Tokyo Revengers in my opinion. That being said, that's everything I read in March. This was a really long video for like absolutely no reason. So if you actually watched this in the background, awesome. If you didn't, you wouldn't obviously not hearing this right now. That being said, I appreciate you. The next video that's coming up is actually a really, really cool one that I'm excited to like sit down and actually work on. I just haven't yet because I've been busy with work, so I want to actually sit down and give this video my attention. So in the meantime, keep reading, keep, listening to podcasts, keep reading online, keep reading physical books, just keep reading, read something every single day if you can, for your brain, for your health, for your future. And let me know what you're reading, so we can talk about it. Because I always like to talk about books. I do be talking about books, you know what I'm saying? If you are new here, I would appreciate if you like, subscribe, and comment down below what you're reading. If you're not new here, I would appreciate if you like and comment down below what you're reading. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.